Good morning, everybody. Today I want to talk about mistakes. I believe that oftentimes we think about mistakes in a way that is not ideal for learning, especially in the context of learning a foreign language. And I want to compare it to a child learning how to walk. So let's say at 5 months old, the child is maybe trying to stand up and it's falling down. But that we wouldn't, as parents, we wouldn't see that as a mistake. We wouldn't see that as, oh, now the child is not going to learn, or now the child is not going to learn how to stand. This was just the first attempt, and there are going to be many more, and at some point the child is going to learn how to stand and walk. Some babies, they start at 8 months old. 8 months old, they're walking, they're running maybe. Some take a little bit longer. It might be 12 months. But I don't think there's a parent, well, at some point, I guess, but usually you're not worried that your child is not going to learn how to walk or run. And we're not, there is this moment where they are let to explore themselves. Like they're just standing up, walking, falling down, standing up, walking, falling down, running with their little push cart. And we're just giving them time to explore this new ability that they have. At some point, there's going to be some running training at school. And then if they decide to be, let's say, long distance runners, or they try to run sprints, there's going to be different training to really improve technique and muscles and whatnot. But that is much later. And I believe it's kind of similar when it comes to learning your foreign language. So, yeah, I think that mistakes at school, they're usually seen as something negative. So there's often this idea that during tests or in exercises, they're based on the assumption that all the answers should be correct. And this means almost by definition that the tests or the exercises are too easy. I will go into this later. I have a separate video on interlanguage where I explain more, where I talk more about it. But it's basically it's a stage that it cannot be jumped over. We cannot go from not knowing a language to perfectly knowing a language without making mistakes. Language is what we do, especially in the first couple of years of language learning at school. The language is very artificial and the tests are very artificial. So oftentimes the kids, they don't really understand what they're saying. They kind of learn blocks by heart that they can use. I go into this maybe in another video on what I mean when I say the language is artificial. But they learn these blocks by heart, and whenever they have like minor spelling mistakes, they get immediately graded down. And fundamentally, the kids, they don't understand these blocks. They don't understand, like they learn maybe you're welcome, but they don't understand the individual parts that make up this block. And not understanding them also means that they quickly forget them. So the question becomes, if we invest time into teaching the children these blocks that they don't understand and that they quickly forget, are we using the time that we have, the very limited amount of time that we have, efficiently? And I don't think so. I think we can do it, use the time that we have more efficiently. I will go into it and I will pick up on some things. Let's talk very briefly about some testing issues. So it has gotten better, but usually the gravity of a mistake is not taken into account. I remember when I was learning French, and it was basically, I don't know, I write a text of 50 words, and then it's just the mistakes are counted, let's say 10 mistakes, and then it's just 50 divided by 10, and that kind of, the result kind of reflects whatever your grade is. And it it does not look at mistakes. It doesn't reflect on mistakes. It doesn't analyze mistakes at all. I mean, sometimes, of course, they are marked as what kind of mistakes they are, but usually there's it doesn't go further. So for example, I have seen this also, like, I don't know, my daughter's English tests, and I don't know, 90 is misspelled or house is misspelled. I've seen many kids uh, do these kinds of mistakes, and oftentimes they're evaluated as one mistake. I mean, this is maybe an extreme example, and some teachers might only give it half a mistake, half a point. But still, I mean, usually it's just that one whole mistake or half a point is deducted, and it doesn't really go into uh, further analyzing the mistakes and really thinking about it in more detail. I will pick it up again in a moment. Also, what you have in loads of tests is these kind of gap fill exercises. So you have a text or just a sentence, one word is missing, and I don't know, maybe the word is given in brackets. So then it's like if you're training the simple past, it it would say, I don't know, go in brackets, and then the children have to put went. Again, it's very artificial. The sentences, especially once the grammar is more advanced, is the sentences become very weird. The kids often they don't really understand what they're doing. They just, uh, for example, it's especially bad for, let's say, just regular simple past verbs where all you have to do is add the ed at the end, and then it's like, I don't know, 10 sentences, and they just add ed. They don't understand what they are doing. It's they're not really learning that much. And if they're making a mistake, it's it's not really, it doesn't give room to make smart mistakes. That's even worse when it comes to multiple choice questions. It's just, I don't know, there's like three or four possible answers. You mark the wrong one. There's no room. There's no room for flexibility of language. There's no room to make smart mistakes. If there's just like, it's, I don't know what went through the head of the students when they marked the wrong answer. Like, it gives me too little insight into, I cannot, like, it doesn't let me evaluate the mistake in more detail. It doesn't give me the option to understand what was going on in that student's head. Why did they do this mistake? And only if I can do that, then I understand what is their true level. And only if I understand that, then I can give them specific exercises that help them develop. So we don't, or we try not to do them. I mean, to some degree, I also do them because they will have these kinds of tests in the future. So we kind of, I want to prepare the children to be able to face these kinds of tests, because we also have to prepare just for the kind of test that we are taking, so that they get used to it, they understand it. So we do it to some degree, but overall, we try to do it as little as possible. So what we try to do instead. So from the beginning, I really try to make the kids understand that mistakes are normal, and more than that, that mistakes are important and that they're good. They're a good thing. They're not a bad thing. They're a good thing. And yeah, I explain to them that it's a normal part of their learning, that they're going to make mistakes. And secondly, I explain to them that if they push themselves to do something that seems or is too difficult, obviously they're not going to succeed perfectly. But I want to see how they fail, how good they fail. Like that is important to me. And then I see, I make sure that they're really being pushed to their limit, that they're really at the edge of what they are capable of. And I believe that is the most effective way to learn. So let's talk a little bit about what does it mean to push yourself. So if I have a, a child and they're trying to write a text and they're thinking I'm not allowed to do mistakes, then the level of the text is below the level of what they are capable of. But if they're thinking, okay, I can make mistakes, and so there's like, for example, a word that they want to use, let's say spontaneously, super difficult word. So I rather want the child to say, I'm gonna give it my best shot. I'm gonna try and spell it. Maybe it's wrong, but I'm gonna try. Instead of thinking, I'm not gonna use that word, and I'm just gonna use something else or leave it out altogether. And the same it goes for grammar and whatnot. And yeah, if let's go back to this kind of pushing to failure, or but that's basically what a mistake is. So we know this from, let's say, muscle growth. If we want a muscle to grow stronger, it has to be pushed to failure. And failure then, like it's a mistake, but it's not something negative. It's something that's what we've been pushing for. Another example that I enjoy, that I like to use, is the high jump. I will never know how high a child can jump unless the bar falls. So the bar falling, yes, it is a mistake, but it's a mistake I want the child to make. And the same goes for texts, for vocabulary, grammar, spelling, and whatnot. I want there to be mistakes so that I can see, okay, this is your limit. I want you to push your limit, and it's safe to push your limit, because that is the way that you're going to learn most efficiently. Now, when we look at muscle growth, and basically you can get injured. Like you're pushing your limit, you can get injured. And the same is kind of true for the brain. So I have seen this again during my time as a assistant teacher or koulunkäyntiavustaja, for example. I have seen so many children that they kind of feel overwhelmed. Like they give up, they think that they are stupid, they lack confidence, they're not listening anymore to the instructions, they're talking with their friends. Maybe also they compare themselves to the other students. They think like that goes on in their heads. It's like nobody asked a question, thinking everybody else understood. I'm the only one who didn't understand, which obviously is not true. Oftentimes there are 5 to 10 other students thinking the exactly same thing. But it can be very problematic, because at some point they might just stop trying. And often they do. And then they're just sitting in the lesson. They're not listening anymore. If they're not listening any longer, then of course they don't understand what is going on. I mean, if the math teacher is giving some new instructions on the new chapter on what to do, and the child is not listening, then yeah, obviously it has nothing to do with their math skills. It's only about they are already on this kind of downward spiral. They kind of jumped off the wagon. They think they gave up. So this is the kind of injury that can happen if children don't get the right support, if they feel overwhelmed, if they think the task is too difficult. So I try to address this, or I do address this as quick as early as possible. From first grade, we have some students, they come here, they speak fluently English. So early on, I tell the kids, make mistakes, do not compare yourself to other students. They have different backgrounds, they have different hobbies. There are so many reasons that maybe their English skills are better, that they are far advanced. We're not focused on them. It doesn't mean anything. We're only focused on you and your progress, your personal progress. This is what we focus on. And this is very important work because, again, we are working in this language shower environment. Everything is in English. And I try to progress to very advanced, again, to texts that are too difficult. I want them to write texts that are above their level. I want them to watch videos, or we do watch videos that are too difficult. So I tell them over and over again, they should not feel overwhelmed. This failure in understanding a text that is too difficult is not a bad thing. We then look at, okay, how well did you fail? How much of this text that is too difficult did you manage to understand? And that's, again, it's a positive thing. I'm merely trying to find out what is your level. And we are trying to push yourself as much as possible. And we can only push yourself as much as possible if we know where is your limit, which we only know once you fail. Again, let's compare it to the high jump. Like, they can clear the bar, and I will never know if we're operating on this idea that a mistake is bad and the bar should never fall. We don't know their level. So, and it's also important as we progress, because then it often happens that some students, their progress is much slower than other students' progress. And because I only have 10 students in the classroom, I can see that immediately. I can act immediately. I can immediately be there to support the student, to explain and encourage, to say, to like one way that I encourage them is I tell them, look, there have been many children, their progress has been slower, and they all manage eventually. They're all going to learn English. Maybe their progress is not so fast as the other students' progress, but then we all are talented in some areas and we're weaker in other areas. It's completely normal. I tell them, look, I see every lesson you're working hard. And even though now it seems that we're not making progress, in fact, we are making progress. And eventually it will become, it just something clicks, and then you will suddenly see it. But it's again, it's normal that we have these kind of plateaus for any learner. But it can be especially hard on those struggling in the first year. They're kind of behind the other students. And then I really have to be there. I really have to be there for them, that they don't give up, that they are not, that they don't stop having confidence in themselves, that they don't stop, that they don't give up, basically, that they stop listening. Yeah, um, in a larger classroom, that's not done as easily, but because we only have, or I only have around 10 students, I can do that.